Hello there and welcome to LearnBytes, the show that delivers bite-sized pieces of wisdom so you can learn how to increase your efficiency and productivity, embrace your natural creativity and lead with impact. I'm Samantha Garrett from Using Technology Better, and joining me on the show today is Astrologer and Counselor Alicia Yusuf. So I'm super excited about my chat with Alicia today. We're going to be covering efficiency and productivity. So let's jump in. You can meet Alicia and we can get this chat underway. Hello, Alicia. So good to have you here.
Hi. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. I have been looking forward to this conversation all week, so it's a lovely way to end a Friday.
Yes.
So I was just telling the audience that you are here today to speak about efficiency and productivity. But before we jump into all the speed round, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, well, I'm a counsellor and astrologer, and I live up here on the sunny Sunshine Coast in Queensland. And I'm just passionate about helping people be their best selves. So I do that through psychotherapy, I do that through astrology, and just bringing that lens of helping people understand themselves more, understand how trauma has informed their lives, just what the blocks and the obstacles can be for them living their best possible life and how to move past them. So, yeah.
That's a very noble and lovely goal. And I love too that you approach it from multiple angles with the counselling and the astrology.
Yeah. The multidisciplinary approach seems to work well.
Yeah, I like that. Multidisciplinary. I won't try and say that, but yes. Awesome. So I know we've got stacks you already said there's stacks you want to talk about, so I'm super pumped. So we're just going to get straight into it. So 8 questions, 4 minutes. I'm just going to get the timer up. So just give me a second.
Timer, do we?
We do have a timer. It is on the phone. So otherwise, my judge of 4 minutes would not be very good. So what I'll try and do is give you about a minute warning if I'm not too distracted by the amazing things you're saying. But yeah, if not, you'll hear large beeps and you know that we're over. So, alrighty. So let's go. First mobile phone and current phone.
So my first was a Motorola 3200, and it was like a bit like the girl in Clueless had, it was actually a bit more of a brick. And I remember there's no such thing as getting booked for using your mobile phone when you were driving then. Whereas now I have an iPhone 10, I think.
You've come a long way.
Yes.
What does working efficiently and productively mean to you, Alicia?
For me, it's building rest into my schedule and sticking to it, resisting the pull, being self-employed, resisting the pull of, just one more thing. And then suddenly it's 10 o'clock at night and my eyes are hanging out of my head. So it's really, for me, building in rest, because I'm at my most effective when I'm well rested.
That's so powerful. I so hope we come back to that because, such an important message. When and where do you work best?
Shall I be honest?
Yeah.
I work best when I'm under pressure, but I do know, coming from a psychological point, that actually comes from trauma-informed environment, growing up in a household where there was a lot of anxiety in the house. So for me, I almost feel like I need that to work well, but I'm slowly healing that. So now for me, the better answer for that is in my office, in my home space with all my bits that I love to have. So ambient music, my oil burner, things that help keep me calm and focused. So learning to rewire my brain towards those healthier ways of being.
That is so interesting. I might ask you about that at the end as well. Oh, we better go. Favorite app for helping you work efficiently and productively?
It's old school, but Google Calendar. If it's not in there, it ain't getting done.
Do you know, we have many guests say calendar, and as the audience will know, I love Google Calendar. So tick for that answer. Biggest efficiency and productivity challenge?
Stress, because it just melts your mind. So it disperses my thinking and emotionally just suppresses my ability to be with things, and even suppresses my immune system. So if I'm feeling stressed, then I need to just come back to me and do my calming, working, breathing, everything. Yeah. So stress is one of the worst things that can happen to us.
Yeah. So then the number one thing you've done that has the biggest impact on your efficiency and productivity?
So for me, and talking about that rest, rest
Yeah.
helps stand against stress. So I use the moon cycles as an astrologer to build in times when the energy's highest, and
Yeah.
also when to build in rest time as well.
Oh,
But
interesting. Okay,
I'll
we'll have
get
to.
more into that.
Yeah, we'll totally have to look into that for sure. Okay, 7, book, video, or podcast you would recommend to others.
The book Rest, How You Get More Done When You Work Less, or something to words, by Alex Sujung Pang. And so he's a Silicon Valley consultant researcher who's done, and I just love the way his book, it blends a lot of science and psychotherapy with some great stories about people from history to make a really compelling argument for why we need to have less of a busy culture.
More rest, which is, yeah, awesome. I think you've got 38 seconds. Oh, number 8. If you could save an hour each day and spend it doing something you love, what would you do and why?
So I'm already passionate about astrology, and that's what I love doing, and the psychotherapy as well. But I'm also an environmentalist. I studied environmental science way back when. So for me, if I had that extra hour, to be educating and informing people more about nature and our connection to nature and how important it is to protect and honor it.
Yeah. I'm spending more time in it, but I guess where you are, you've
Yes,
probably got nature all around you anyway.
yes, I do. I'm very lucky.
You're lucky. Well, do you know what? Look at that. Bang on the
Yep,
4 minutes. So good.
perfect.
Which
You
is
can tell I've done
awesome.
this before.
It's so funny because it's most often when we do the efficiency and productivity series that we finish on time. It's like the people are like, feel they have to be efficient.
Whereas
Okay,
the creative just flows.
yeah, exactly. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah, no. Okay, I'm so keen to hear moon cycles and rest, because rest was such that theme that came through for you. So I'm really,
Mm.
really keen to hear. Tell us more about how we can harness this.
Yeah, well, just in the, why even use the moon cycles in the first place? And it's the natural rhythm of the planet. It's this beautiful object that belongs only to us on the planet, that revolves around our planet each month. And traditional farming methods for thousands of years followed the moon as times when to plant, when to harvest. Even they used to use it for when to harvest construction materials. And what you may not know and this has to do with sap flow. So
Right.
sap flows more on a full moon than it does on a dark or a new moon. And it's believed that the wooden stilts under which Venice was built were all harvested in the last few days of the moon cycle, so that they had less sap in them, so that they dried harder and were stronger.
Wow.
So this is, yeah, there's a lot in it. And of course, us, scientists are finding now that there's variations in biological functions in plants and in animals when they breed and when they do different things, even in Earth's electromagnetic fields. And this, of course, applies to us as humans as well. So the idea for this is that if we can be in more concert with the moon, instead of trying to push, when the low ebb energy is around in a dark or a new moon, if we're trying to be really productive in that time, it's like pushing something uphill. Whereas if we choose those days for rest and other times for productivity, we can go with more of a flow that matches the Earth's rhythms.
Yeah, so it's kind of like stepping away from that idea that we can be on and productive like every single day of the month, and recognizing
Mm.
that there are times when we can and there are times when it would be better served to do something else. Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah, absolutely. And that phase where the moon's building in light, so that's from the new moon to the full moon, that's called the waxing phase. And so that's
Yeah.
when sap starts to flow in plants and energy starts to flow for us. So if we can use that as a phase where there's growth, there's increase, there's productivity. And then the waning phase, which is from that full down to what we
Yeah.
call the balsamic or the dark phase of the moon, is when we're starting to, energy starting to ebb, and we can be closing down and shutting things down, or just going at a slower pace. So,
Mm.
there's 8 phases of the moon, but then there's 4 that are what we call the active phases. So the first quarter, the full, and the last quarter are the really active phases. So they're the ones I will focus on.
Yeah.
even women with their cycles, if we're understanding more and more about our monthly, our monthly cycles, and this can apply to your own cycle as well. If you treat ovulation as the new moon, as you treat menstruation as the new moon, ovulation is that more full moon, that you can relate it in this way as well. So yeah, we women know it's not good to be trying to get active and doing things right before we start to menstruate each month, because our energy is lower.
Yeah, so it's just it's working with the energy you've got rather than pushing when you don't have it.
Yeah. So the new moon, think about this as a clean slate, a new beginning, and this is where you kind of be starting getting ideas in, or launching products, or launching sales. It is, and it can be a highly creative period as well. So some of the things you might be doing in this is just making space, because it is still dark. The new moon, if you think about it, is when that little fingernail is seen in the sky. So it is darker, and I think about it like a toddler. They're all revved up, and then they nap, and then they're revved up, and then they eat, and then they're revved up. So this is what the new moon can be like. It's definitely more energizing, but it needs those rest periods too. So if you can make space for the creative flow to come through, brainstorming, researching, whatever helps light your creative spark is great to do under the new moon. It's also a time when we're really open to new experiences too. So that phase, might be from the new to the first quarter. If you want to try something new, but you're feeling a bit worried about doing it, or you're not ready to experiment, try it under a new moon, or that what we call the crescent phase, to get that, okay, I'm ready. I can do something different. And I think it's also, especially as we get a couple of days past the new moon into that crescent phase, it's very curious. So it's great to be learning about things, sharing information, communicating with others, but especially where you're learning, you're pulling things towards you. So it's like the sprout moving up through the soil, just pressing its head above the soil. First phase.
Okay.
And then the first quarter's action. I always think about it like the director's board, on a movie where they clap. Action. And this is where all the moving parts start to come into play. So this is where it's the week to get stuff done. So you often feel more driven, more ambitious, and more self-motivated in this week. And I would suggest what I do is schedule activities that require a lot of energy and a lot of momentum. Like that hard slog of project work that then gets refined right before the full moon.
So it's interesting on that, because it's not like you're saying, well, don't do anything before, in the low energy, just like slack off. But it's like, do those things that are lesser energy, like that refinement and that kind of stuff. Is that right? Because
it's not realistic in today's world that we take off 2 weeks a month. I wish it was, but it's just not. So it's finding the right tasks for the right period, and this is where efficiency can happen. Another good thing about that first quarter, there's tension in it. It's like two things. It forms what we call a square, a tense aspect. So it's a great time for negotiating. If you're trying to negotiate a deal or negotiate a contract, if you start it right under that first quarter, what you may find as it moves towards the full is that things start to flow. And happen.
All right. So what's next?
So next is the full moon, and this is the harvesting phase. So it's about fulfillment, about peak energy. And it can be really where you see the fruits of your labor come to fruition. So especially if you have a look back, reflect back on what you started under the new moon and celebrate it. If we think about it, everybody parties under a full moon. How many cultures have full moon parties? So it's definitely got that kind of energy of getting out, celebrating. I remember living in London, and I worked in Covent Garden at night, and you'd walk through Covent Garden under a full moon and the pubs would be spilling out, and everyone was in the street. Whereas if you walk through under a new moon, there'd be nobody.
Dead.
So it's really got that energy. And then the full moon, because it's an opposition, it can be a great time for teamwork, where you're really able to see somebody else's perspective. Because the full moon is when the sun's here, the moon's here and the planet's right in the middle. So it's that seeing things across the table, seeing somebody else's point of view. So collaborative work, team projects are great under the full moon. And stepping into that spotlight. This is a great time to be presenting, to be pitching, to be giving a talk, or, sharing the information, whatever you've pulled together. So, and I think in general, as I've already kind of pointed out, it's a very social time. So, if you want to plan an office party, or you want to plan, taking a client out for dinner, full moon's really good. Can be a bit emotional. Full moons are often emotional. So it might be a time to be aware of needing a little bit of a pressure valve to be released under the full moon, because it does draw things to the surface. Just ask somebody who works in an emergency room, or, police. People tend to be a little bit more reckless or emotionally driven under full moons. So there's that to take into account as well.
And that's just interesting, like thinking about that. And then what you were saying about observing like the pubs and stuff in London, like the energy has an impact on us, even if we're not aware of it. That's what I find fascinating, right? Like we're having the discussion, but those people in all those pubs didn't go, oh, well, it's a full moon, we'll go out tonight. Oh, it's a new moon, we won't. It just had that impact. And same with the, people, the emergency room and all that on a full moon. It's not consciously that that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because, this is in many ways, I feel like the human has gotten away from their realization of how connected and embedded they are into the planet and its cycles and its rhythms. We tend to think, we're above it or we're separate from it, but we're not. We're a big part of it. So this is where it plays out. And so then from here, we've got that last quarter moon. So this is where, energy is starting to reduce after the full moon. And it's really, I would suggest from the last quarter moon until the new, is focusing on completing tasks. So not starting anything new, but organizing, looking at your to-do lists, checking them off, or even making them afresh to keep you on task. But it's not, it's making the most of what you've got rather than starting again with something.
I really love that. It's like that natural review and reflection time and finishing time built into the month.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So where you're able to go, okay, well, what did we start? Where have we come from? Where have we come to? It's also, I love the way you brought that up, because it can be where we think, all right, what did come to fruition under the full moon and what didn't? So researching and analysis under this last quarter phase can really help us go, okay, well, this is where we can refine things going forwards, or this is where we can just drop that, product line or that sales pitch altogether and try something different.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And then the last one is, I'd say for this, is putting in place clear boundaries about how you use your time, because your energy will be reduced in this phase. So you can't do all the things, and it's okay to not be so productive. This may be a week where you maybe watch a bit of TV before you start work, or you plan lots of breaks in your day. And especially in the last few days, the balsamic days, it's really low depleted energy. So I always make sure, actually, I've got one friend who's an astrologer and a counselor. That's her day, a week, a month, where she actually isn't client facing. She just does her admin. She does her, it's a great time to declutter, do your Marie Kondoing in the last quarter and the balsamic especially. Put away your files if paperwork's all over the place. Do all your filing, and even releasing old habits and old belief systems around yourself too is good.
I love that, because it's so practical, like to think about. Whereas I don't think a lot of us give that much conscious effort, subconscious thought to our day, let alone our week, let alone our month. But when you actually think about that, there's things that are going to be a better use of your time to do at certain times of the month, then you can think about that.
And it helps us be productive in the way that it's like, okay, well, if we think about it for a month or a month, put it in that way, then we can really frame things in the right period of time. So we're putting a good structure in place around it, rather than kind of just meeting whatever comes in, that fire hose analogy, just kind of firefighting all the time with what comes across it.
It's being intentional with our time. And then I like that idea of that boundaries, particularly around that last week. And just having that, is it also being like gentle with yourself and expecting that you're not going to be able to do what you were doing in, say, that week after full moon when it's high energy, like that last week of the cycle is not going to be the same.
No, yeah, it's not. And especially the last few days, so that balsamic period is really a time to just attend to simple tasks and not expect too much of yourself. And I think there's a lot that lies in there. There's a saying in especially in addiction circles, 12-step programs, let go, let God. And that's very much what those last few days are. Go with the flow as much as you can.
Yeah.
If you find yourself procrastinating around a task, then put that aside just for a couple of days and try something else, something that's probably more creative, more intuitive. And it's very much a week to be trusting your gut rather than your head, especially those last few days, because it can be more intuitive. And I'm always talking about, this is the week to be meditating, journaling, reflecting, as you were saying earlier, and just being with that path of release resistance as energy ebbs.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you, Alicia. That's
my pleasure.
That's brilliant. And I want to link that with something you said earlier to give a practical tip for our audience. So if you are using Google Calendar, personally, you can actually add the moon cycle calendar to your Google Calendar. If you're wondering, like, how do I know when the new moon and the last quarter and the full moon, you can add it actually to your Google Calendar. So I'll put some instructions below for how to do that to link into with your previous comments. So you
awesome.
might like
I didn't know that. I'm going to try that too.
That's my Google training nerd coming out. So yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I find it so helpful. So I have it on both in my personal and my work calendar, because then I can be conscious of it because it's right there in my face. So yeah. Well,
that's awesome.
I got to teach you something in here too.
Thank you. Sharing is caring.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Alicia, so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. And there's some such practical things people can take away. So if our audience want to connect with you and learn more about all your wonderful work, I know you've got a very rich blog with a lot of content. And so where can they find you?
Yep, so my website, aliciayusuf.com, and you can subscribe to my email there. So I offer both astrology and mental health tips for people in those areas. I'm on Instagram at aliciayusuf.astrologer, and occasionally I'm on YouTube, but I'll be moving more across to the YouTube platform in the coming months. So see more of me there.
Awesome. Well, we'll link all that stuff below. And thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. And for everyone watching, enjoy working with the moon and learning from Alicia. So thanks so much. See ya.
Thanks for having me, Samantha. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Hello again. Thank you so much for tuning in for that chat with Alicia. I loved it. I loved hearing about those moon cycles. And what I really, really like about this is that it gives us a really practical tool to actually plan our month with. As I think I commented to Alicia during the interview, I think we fool ourselves a bit when we're like, we can work at, top speed all the time. And really we can't. Rest is really important. And using the moon cycles is a great way to build in that rest and actually use your energy in optimal ways throughout the month. So be sure to check out the links I put below to all Alicia's resources. There'll be some handy stuff for there you to take a look at, and grab that moon cycles calendar on Google Calendar if you're using that, because that's an easy way to check what the moon is doing. So that is it from me for today. But before you go, if you haven't already subscribed to the Using Technology Better YouTube channel and you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to do that. If you're listening to the podcast version, then you can follow the show on your favorite podcast app as well. And of course, all the notes and links from the show are down below. So that is it from me for today, but I'll see you again soon for another bite-sized piece of the learning adventure that is life. See you then.